You're listening to the Sidewalk Prophet.
Okay, here we are, and it is Faith School. Let's get into it. So we're going to talk about faith, and I did this because Faith School, because I honestly believe Jesus had the disciples in Faith School. He was teaching them how to use their faith. And so, hey, we still need the same thing today. Let's get into it. So first off, I've heard people say this, and you hear people saying it sometimes, but it never sat right in my spirit. But now I finally kind of dug up the information now, and now I have more understanding on it. The thing that people say all the time, they say faith and belief are the same thing and like they're interchangeable, but they're not. That's why it never set right with me. They're not the same. So, and let's get this point straight. We're talking about Bible faith, not the world's faith. When the world says faith, they're talking about, I don't know, some hope or some wish or something. But godly faith actually does things. It actually moves mountains. Godly faith moves the hand of God. So let's get into it. The misconception comes between faith and belief is because belief is a part of your faith. So you see it, that's why they equate it, because belief is part of faith, but it's not the whole thing. Because you can't just tell God you believe. You have to show him. Let's go to the next one. Faith is belief plus corresponding action. So you believe in your heart and you giving evidence of your belief with your corresponding actions that go with it. And the way it works is this. You give God the corresponding actions, and he gives you the substance that you were hoping for. And it's also can be translated earnestly expecting. Now, this one is for my theologians, the theologians that always talk about when we say relationship that we trying to get too friendly with God or too intimate with God. I don't know how they can say that when Jesus called us the bride of Christ. But anyway, let's go into it. So, if you say we're getting too comfortable with God, now this is the time where the faith people have to get comfortable with God, because faith depends on your relationship. How can you have faith in someone when you have no relationship with them, when you have no background with them, when you have no history with them? Let's give an example. Since faith depends on relationship, I'll give you this example right here. Let's say you have an investment attorney. And he is telling you, hands down, this stock that I'm recommending you is going to be the next thing. You know what I mean? This is going to be the next big thing. He's telling you to put all your money on it. He's telling you to put everything you got on it. He's telling you to mortgage your home and get money off of that. He said this one is darn near a sure thing. He tells you to put all your money on it. Then you get word that he didn't put none of his money on it. Are you going to believe him? If he's not putting any actions with what he's telling you to do, are you going to believe that he actually believes in that stock? Are you going to have faith in it? No, you're not. And so that's just an example, a natural example of faith. Now, let's go back to God. Belief is in the heart. Faith is your natural actions that confirms that you believe. See it? So and your actions are in the natural. So you're doing natural actions showing God that you believe this thing, that you believe it. And what happens is, for that, God exchanges natural manifestation. So for your faith, he will exchange natural manifestation. And I've heard this sometimes too, and it didn't set right with me again. This was the second one I heard, and it did not set right with me. The person said that faith requires courage. Faith does not require courage, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. When Abraham left his home to believe God, was he shaking in his boots? No. When Abraham set his son on the altar, was he shaking in his boots? No. And in certain times it says he was convinced, that he was completely convinced. So you can't tell me that these people are shaking. Was David, when David was believing God, did they talk about how he was shaking in his boots? When Jesus was believing God, was it talking about how he was shaking before each miracle? No. When Paul was believing, was he outside of courage? No. And I'll tell you why. Let's go back to the relationship portion of this. And it's real important. So what happens when you're with God, God never pushes you into faith. He slow walks you into that thing. It says that Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith. Meaning, and that's a twofold term. So number one, he is the one that begins your faith and teaches you to go from level to level in faith. So he begins your faith in that way. But then number two, he is the initiator of the faith process. So God or Jesus, whatever one, will tell you something to believe. That's right. He initiates it. It has to come from God. You can't get faith. Let me say this right so you can hear it. When you're doing a faith manifestation, it 99 times out of 10 doesn't come directly out of the Bible. Meaning it can be confirmed in the Bible, but God is actually speaking to you about that thing. He's giving you your homemade instructions on how you're going to bring this to pass. And that's actually what you need. You need the Spirit of God leading you in that thing. And so what these people were doing with their strong faith, God was slow walking them. David didn't just step up and fight Goliath. He had things before that. Jesus didn't step up and immediately go to the cross. He had things before that. David didn't just jump into the kingdom. He had things before that. These people had history, or let's translate it, relationship with God. And when they believed in faith, you thought they was putting pressure on themselves. No, they were putting pressure on that relationship. They were putting pressure on God to be who he said he is. And that's how it works. The pressure never falls on you when you're in faith. That pressure falls on God. So that's all I want to say on this. This was a short faith school. I thank you for joining me.
Thank you for listening to the Sidewalk Prophet Podcast. For questions and comments, please email us at churchpodcasters.gmail.com.